Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It had been a long week, and I was looking forward to spending some time with my partner, Tom. Our relationship had always been a slow burn, built on a foundation of friendship and trust that had only deepened over the years. But lately, with the pressures of work, family, and life, we hadn't had the time to really connect in the way we once had. So when Tom suggested we go on a spontaneous weekend getaway, I was thrilled at the opportunity to reconnect. We decided on a small cabin in the mountains, quiet, secluded, and just the perfect escape from the bustle of everyday life. The drive up was filled with easy conversation, punctuated by laughter and the occasional comfortable silence. It felt good to be away from the routine, to simply enjoy each other's company without distractions. When we arrived at the cabin, it was even more perfect than I had imagined. Nestled in the trees, with a clear view of the mountains in the distance, it felt like a sanctuary. The smell of pine filled the air as we unpacked our bags and settled in. It was just the two of us, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could feel the tension in my body begin to unwind. That evening, after a simple dinner, we sat on the porch with a bottle of wine, watching the sun set over the horizon. The light turned soft and golden, casting a warm glow over everything. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so at peace, so entirely in the moment. It was just Tom and me, and it felt like the world had slowed down, leaving us in this perfect little bubble of stillness. We talked about everything and nothing, our past trips, our favorite books, the funny little things that had happened at work. And as the conversation flowed, I noticed how easily we slipped back into the rhythm we had always shared. The way his eyes softened when he smiled at me, the way his voice became gentle when he spoke my name. It was a quiet intimacy, one that didn't need words or grand gestures to make me feel loved and understood. Later, we decided to go for a walk under the stars. The crisp mountain air felt refreshing, and as we walked side by side, I could feel the connection between us growing stronger. It was as if the distance that had crept in over the past few months had evaporated, leaving only the raw, genuine affection we had for each other. As we reached a clearing with an unobstructed view of the night sky, Tom stopped and turned to face me. "You know," he said softly, "I've missed this. Just being with you like this, no distractions, no pressures, just us." I looked up at him, my heart swelling. I've missed it too. I think I've forgotten how important this is. How important you are. Tom reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from my face before cupping my cheek in his hand. The touch was tender, familiar, and the way he looked at me made my breath catch in my chest. There was no rush, no need for words. It was just the two of us. In this moment, completely in sync. I leaned in slowly, and our lips met in a kiss that was gentle but filled with years of unspoken affection. As our kiss deepened, the world around us seemed to fade away, leaving only the warmth of his touch and the certainty that we were exactly where we were meant to be. We spent the rest of the night wrapped in each other's arms, talking, laughing, and rediscovering the joy of simply being in each other's presence. It wasn't about the grand gestures or the extravagant plans, it was about the quiet moments of connection that had always been the foundation of our relationship. The next morning, we woke up early to watch the sunrise. We sat on the porch with hot coffee in hand, wrapped in blankets, the first rays of light spilling over the mountains. There was a sense of contentment that hung in the air, a quiet satisfaction. That came from knowing we had rediscovered something important, something we had both been longing for without even realizing it. As the day unfolded, we spent our time exploring the surrounding woods, cooking meals together, and simply enjoying the peace of our surroundings. There was no rush, no pressure, just a shared experience that was both grounding and refreshing. It was as if the world outside the cabin didn't exist, and all that mattered was us, right here, in this space we had carved out together. By the time we were preparing to leave, I realized how much the weekend had meant to me. It wasn't just the change of scenery or the quiet moments in nature. It was a chance to reconnect with Tom, to rediscover the depth of our love and the comfort of his presence. We had shared something special, something that would stay with us long after we returned to the hustle of everyday life. On the drive back home, I couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of gratitude for what we had built together. Life would always throw its challenges our way, but I knew that as long as we made time for moments like this quiet, honest, and filled with love, we could weather anything. As we pulled into our driveway, I looked over at Tom, who smiled at me with that familiar warmth. "Thank you for this," I said softly, "for reminding me of what really matters." He reached over, taking my hand in his, and squeezed it gently. "Thank you for being my partner in all of this," he replied, his voice full of sincerity. I wouldn't want to do this life with anyone else. And in that moment, I knew that no matter where life took us, we would always find our way back to each other. Because love, real love, isn't about the grand gestures or the perfect moments. It's about the quiet, everyday connections, the ones that hold us together when everything else seems to fall apart. And with Tom, I knew that was exactly what I had found. As we settled back into the rhythm of our everyday lives, I realized how much that weekend had rejuvenated me. The connection we had shared was still present, lingering in the little moments, like the way Tom would grab my hand as we sat watching TV or the soft glances we exchanged while cooking dinner. It was a reminder that love wasn't about the occasional grand gesture, but about the quiet, steady moments that made us feel seen and valued. Our relationship had always been built on a strong foundation of communication and respect. But over the years, like many couples, we'd gotten busy. Work, responsibilities, and life in general had created a space between us. It wasn't something either of us had wanted, but it was a reality we had fallen into. Yet that weekend reminded me that love was something we had to actively nurture. And I was more than ready to do that, especially after experiencing the closeness we had rediscovered. A few days after our return, I started planning small dates for us, little surprises to bring back the magic. Nothing big or extravagant, just simple, intentional moments of connection. One evening, after a long day at work, I set up a little dinner for two in our living room. I lit candles, prepared a simple but delicious meal, and put on some music in the background. When Tom came home, he seemed surprised, but that only made it more special. "What's all this?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face as he saw the setup. I smiled back, feeling a little shy but excited. Just wanted to remind us of the little things, you know? A way to reconnect even in the middle of all the craziness. We sat down to eat, and the evening flowed easily. We talked about our days, shared memories, and laughed about silly things. The atmosphere was cozy, intimate. We were rediscovering each other, not through big gestures, but through the quiet. Moments that had always been the backbone of our relationship. Tom reached across the table, taking my hand. "I love these moments with you," he said, his voice sincere. "They remind me of how lucky I am to have you in my life. It's easy to get lost in everything, but this makes it all feel so much better." I squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of his words. "I love it too. I think we need more of this. Life has a way of sweeping us up, but we can make time for these things. I want to keep building our moments." "Absolutely," Tom agreed. "We built so much together, but we need to keep watering the garden, right? We can't let it just sit there and expect it to grow on its own." I laughed softly, his words echoing what we had both been thinking. Exactly. It's not about waiting for the big moments, it's about making the little ones count. Over the next few weeks, we continued to prioritize our relationship. We took walks together after dinner, watched movies in our pajamas, and made time to talk about things other than work or the mundane details of life. Each moment of connection felt like a breath of fresh air, and I felt more grounded with each passing day. One evening, as we sat on the porch after dinner, watching the sunset, I reflected on how much we had grown. "Do you ever think about how we've come?" I asked, my voice soft as I looked at the sky turning pink and orange. Tom turned to me, his eyes warm. "All the time. It's incredible, really, the highs, the lows, all of it. We've built something real together. Something strong." "Yeah," I said, feeling a lump form in my throat as the depth of his words. hit me. We've been through so much, but we're still here. And it feels like we're just getting started. He pulled me closer, wrapping his arm around me. We've created this life, this connection, and it's only going to keep growing. We'll keep making time for each other because that's the most important thing. As we sat there, wrapped in each other's embrace, I couldn't help but feel incredibly grateful for what we had. Love, I realized, wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a decision to show up for each other every day, to support one another, to appreciate the small moments as much as the big ones. The next morning, as we woke up together, I looked at Tom, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. The world outside might have been busy, but here in our little corner of it, we had everything we needed. We had love, connection, and a promise to keep growing together, no matter where life would take us. "Good morning," I whispered, brushing my fingers through his hair. He smiled sleepily, his arms pulling me closer. "Good morning. I'm so glad we're doing this. We've got something really special, don't we?" "We do," I agreed, kissing him softly on the forehead. "And I'm not letting it go." As we spent more time together, I noticed a shift in our connection. There was an ease to our love now, a quiet understanding that had been built over years of shared experiences. We had been through challenges, and we had come out stronger. And as we continued to build this life, I knew one thing for sure: we're no longer just surviving. We were thriving. Our love wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping romantic moments. It was about the way we supported each other, the way we showed up even when things weren't easy. It was in the quiet everyday moments, the times when we were simply there for one another. And that, I realized, was more than enough. As the months passed, the rhythm of our life together grew even more in sync. We learned new things about each other, not just the small quirks that made us laugh, but the deeper parts of ourselves that we hadn't shared before. Each conversation, no matter how light or serious, felt like an opportunity to discover something new about the person I had chosen to spend my life with. Our time together was no longer just about fleeting moments of connection. It became about creating a foundation of trust, understanding, and vulnerability. I was learning that love wasn't about avoiding the tough moments, but about facing them with the person you trust most. And that was what made our connection feel so secure. There was no pretending, no hiding behind walls. We could be honest with each other, whether it was about our fears, our ambitions, or even our mistakes, and know that we would still be loved and accepted. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to take a long walk by myself. As much as I enjoyed the time with Tom, I had also come to appreciate moments of solitude where I could reflect and gather my thoughts. The walk was a simple one down by the lake near our home, with the sun casting golden light across the water. It gave me time to think about everything that had changed in our lives over the past few months. I had noticed how much more connected I felt to Tom, and not just in the obvious ways. Yes, we had the romantic dinners, the quiet moments together, and the intimate conversations, but what I found most remarkable was how we had started to grow together in deeper, more meaningful ways. We were starting to talk about our futures more openly, planning for what lay ahead, and sharing our hopes and dreams, not just for our relationship, but for the individual paths we each wanted to take. When I returned home, I found Tom sitting at the kitchen table reading. His presence was always a comfort, and the sight of him there, so at ease, made me smile. "I went for a walk," I said, setting down my purse. It was nice to just clear my head. He looked up and smiled warmly. "I'm glad you're back. I've been thinking about things too. About us, about everything." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "What about us?" Tom set the book down, his expression thoughtful. "I just keep realizing how much I want it to continue growing with you. We've been through so much, and I know we're not perfect, but I feel like we're in a really good place right now. I want to keep building on this. I want to keep investing in us." His words hit me in a way I hadn't expected. I could feel the sincerity in his voice, the depth of his emotion, and I realized just how much he meant it. It wasn't about the Ups and downs we'd faced, it was about the commitment to move forward together, to nurture the love we had and allow it to evolve. I feel the same, I said softly, my heart swelling with affection. I've never felt more certain about anything in my life. We've built something incredible, and I want to keep building it too. We sat together, talking more about our plans for the future. We discussed travel, career goals, and even things we wanted to learn together, like picking up a new hobby or starting a project that we could both contribute to. It wasn't about grand schemes, it was about the small ways we could continue to support each other's growth, individually. And as a couple, in those moments, I realized that what we had wasn't just love. It was partnership. We were learning how to balance each other, how to give space when needed and offer support when asked. We were figuring out what it meant to be a team, not just in the easy times, but in the challenging ones too. And the more we talked, the more I understood just how much we had become a part of each other's story. Over the weeks that followed, we continued to invest in each other. We made time for little surprises. Tom would surprise me with my favorite dessert, and I would plan a movie night with all his favorite snacks. It wasn't about big gestures. It was about the thoughtful, everyday acts of love that showed we cared. We learned that it wasn't enough to just say, I love you. It was about showing it in ways that were meaningful to each other. One evening, as we sat together on the couch after dinner, Tom turned to me, his expression serious yet soft. Jen, I've been thinking about how lucky I am. Not just because of how much I love you, but because of how much I've learned from you. You've taught me so much about what it means to really be present in our relationship. I smiled, touched by his words. And you've taught me how important it is to support each other. We've really become a team, haven't we? He nodded, his eyes warm with affection. Yeah, we have. And I'm grateful for that every day. That moment of gratitude, that simple acknowledgement of how far we had come, made me realize just how much I cherished him and how much we had grown together. Not just as individuals, but as partners. We weren't perfect, but we had learned how to be better together. And that was more than enough for me. As the months went on, I saw even more changes in us. We were more open, more understanding, and more connected than ever before. We had faced our share of challenges, but we had done it hand in hand. I no longer feared the bumps in the road because I knew that no matter what, we would navigate them together. And one evening, as I sat next to Tom watching the sunset with him, I realized that love was so much more than I had ever expected. It wasn't just about the good times or the moments of passion. It was about finding peace and joy in the everyday, in the quiet moments and the support and the growth. It was about being present with each other through everything life threw at us. And in that realization, I found everything I'd ever needed, no matter what came next. I knew that we would continue to build, to grow, and to love together, as the evening continued, the warm glow of the sunset slowly faded into the coolness of night. The gentle hum of the world outside seemed to quiet as we sat together, side by side, the quiet comfort of each other's presence wrapping around us. Like a blanket. But as I looked at Tom, I felt a longing deep inside, a desire that went beyond the peace and connection we had already shared. He must have sensed the shift in the air, because without a word he turned to face me. Our eyes met, and in that moment, it was as if time had stopped, the world outside no longer mattering. It was just the two of us, our love, our connection, and the deep pull we felt for each other. Without breaking eye contact, he reached out and gently cupped my face. In his hands, the warmth of his touch sent a wave of heat through me, and I couldn't help but lean into him, my breath quickening. His thumb brushed over my lips, and I felt my pulse quicken in response. The simple, tender touch made my heart race, reminding me just how deeply I was connected to him. I love you, he whispered, his voice low, thick with emotion, as he leaned in closer. More than I can say. I love you too, I breathed, barely able to speak, the depth of my feelings overwhelming me. And with that, his lips found mine, soft at first, as though savoring the moment. But then, as our passion built, the kiss deepened. It wasn't just the meeting of lips, it was a merging of souls, a blending of all the moments we had shared, and all the love that had grown between us. His hands moved to my back, pulling me closer as I responded in kind, our bodies instinctively seeking each other. The kiss grew more urgent, more demanding, as the love we shared surged between us, stronger than ever before. It wasn't just physical, it was an emotional connection that seemed to ignite something deep within me, something primal and undeniable. Let myself be fully consumed by him, by the warmth of his touch, the strength of his embrace. Every kiss, every caress was a promise that no matter what, we would continue to grow, to build, to love. His hands moved gently over me, tracing the curves of my body, and I felt a rush of desire, a hunger for him that matched his own. We moved together, the world fading away as we gave ourselves completely to the moment. It wasn't just about passion. It was about the intimacy we had nurtured, the trust that had grown between us. Each touch was a reminder of the deep love we had for each other, and in that moment, everything else fell away. There was only us, wrapped up in the shared experience of love, the intensity of the bond we had created. As we finally pulled back, our foreheads resting against each other, our breaths still ragged, I looked into his eyes, and I knew in that quiet, intimate moment that this was the love I had always dreamed of. It was a love that was built on trust, on understanding, and on the shared commitment to be there for each other, no matter what. I never want to let go of this, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Then you don't have to, he murmured, his voice filled with the same depth of feeling. I'm yours, always. And in that moment, I knew that nothing could ever change what we had. Our love was eternal, a flame that would burn brighter with each passing day, stronger, and more passionate than I ever thought possible.